But Brandon, let's move on into our last topic before we make our picks for the week. And we're going to look at a team where, if you're a fan of this team and you're a coming back listener, a fellow listener, I should say, of the Onside Kick, you and I have had a shaky relationship. And that's because Denver Bronco fans don't like me because I tell you how it is with your team, that your quarterback situation sucks. And that's why you're really bad. That's what I've been saying for the last 2 years. And people have been trying to tell me Trevor Siemian was an actual quarterback. I think not. However, after the blowout loss that the Broncos had to the Patriots, Vance Joseph says there will be sweeping reviews, Brandon. We are going to leave no stone unturned, and we're going to evaluate all areas after the route. Well, you know what area they should look at? The quarterback. You got Brock the Cock-a-doodle-doo, by the way. You've got Trevor Siemian. You got Paxton Lynch, who apparently you drafted him to be the guy, but he can't be the guy for you. So I want to ask you this question, Brandon. Right now, the Broncos are slated as the 5th pick in the draft. This could all change. They could win games. The Bears could win games. Everything's moving right now. But if things hold up and the Broncos are a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, do you see the Broncos grabbing a first-round quarterback in the 2018 NFL draft?
No, I don't. I don't, because me saying this is going to be odd because I thought that Brock Osweiler was so incompetent over in Houston. He couldn't do anything right. Well, he doesn't look terrible here in Denver. In Denver, I think, is where he was comfortable. That's where he was before he was with Houston. He didn't look bad that time. He doesn't look bad this time. And I know that people are going, well, you're saying he didn't look bad, but do you think he looked good? Well, he's had some good moments. Trevor Siemian. I'm going to disagree with you. Trevor Siemian, I don't think, is a bad quarterback. And
he's not the guy. That's all I'm saying. Not the guy.
And then we don't know what Paxton Lynch can do. We have no idea. He's been injured. We have no clue. I don't think that the problem is going that solving the problem is going to go and get another quarterback in the draft. I just don't think that that's what you do at this point.
I'm going to be on the other side of you only because of one thing. And that's because of how the draft order sits at this very moment. Like I said, things can change. Also, I got to throw out I forgot to promote that December 13th, I believe, so the 14th, the week of the 13th will be our first mock draft for the 2018 NFL draft here on the Onside Kick. So I want to get you guys ready for that. That's going to be our first mock draft, Mark and I. But if the draft order sits like it is now, there will be 2 of the 5 teams in the top 5 won't be drafting a quarterback. Now, if Cleveland's number 1 and Sam Darnold comes out, I think they'd be idiots not to draft him. But Deshaun Kaiser looked good this last week. Looked the best week that he's had. And I think the Browns like Deshaun Kaiser, although it's been rocky. The Niners, they're not taking a quarterback. They got their guy. They traded for Jimmy Garoppolo or Garoppolo, and they got their guy. Here's the thing I would think of. If I am at the 5th pick, and I know that Brock is good, but is he great? Trevor Siemian, he's not the guy. Paxton Lynch, we drafted him. He's been a disappointment after 2 years. Do you sit there at 5, let things pass? And this is all if Sam Darnold comes out too, because he could stay. But if Sam Darnold comes out, I'm working a deal with either the Browns or the 49ers to move ahead of the Giants to get Sam Darnold. Because even if you don't think that Sam Darnold, I don't want him starting year 1, okay, that's fine. You can have him sit that first year under Brock Osweiler if you're confident in Brock Osweiler because he's not a flaming piece of garbage out there for the Broncos. I'd rather have Brock Osweiler out there than Trevor Siemian. I think that the Broncos, if Sam Darnold comes out and you're sitting there, if you're sitting there at 3, you're taking him because I don't see the Browns or the Niners taking a quarterback. But if you're 4 or 5 the Colts are interesting. I don't think they take one because technically they got Andrew Luck on the roster still, although tempers could be flaring there, especially after dumbass Jim Irsay saying that all the injuries all in Andrew Luck's head. You're a fucking idiot. Get the hell out of here. You got Andrew Luck. They got Jacoby Brissett, who they are really high on after trading the Patriots for him. The key is the Giants, because I think the Giants could be a team at 3 that takes a quarterback. And if Sam Darnold fell to them, they'd be like, we're taking him. We're taking him, and we're either moving Eli or we're putting Darnold under Eli, and Eli's done in the next 2 years. That's what I think is going to happen. And if I'm the Broncos, if I have a chance at Sam Darnold, I'm going out and getting Sam Darnold. And if I have an inkling that the Giants are going to draft him, I work a deal with either the Niners or the Browns to get that. I would probably say the Niners because you could probably use a cheaper price to get the second overall pick than the first overall pick. But that's what I do if I'm the Broncos. In this scenario where it's Browns, Niners, Giants, Colts, and Broncos, I trade that 5 and some other stuff, kind of like what the Bears did, to move up from 5 to 2, which is a bigger jump, to get Sam Darnold on my team and mold him and know that I have a future quarterback.
Well, Ricky, I've sat here, I listened to you go through your scenario of what could happen with the draft, of who the Broncos should trade for, and all this stuff, and I just can't agree with you.
Okay.
I can't agree with you. You're acting as though the problem here is quarterback. Is quarterback an issue right now? I think it is. But you know what's the bigger issue? They have no running game. In any of these games that they've lost, they have no running game. They have nothing. In the games they won against the Chargers, I think C.J. Anderson had 95 yards on the ground. In the game against the Cowboys, which Trevor Siemian threw for over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, just 1 pick, the guy who you think is a sack of garbage, Anderson had 118 yards and a touchdown there. In the win against the Raiders, I think he had over 90 yards. Oh, actually, in the win against the Chargers, I think he had 80. The win against the Raiders, he had 95 yards. And then in the Cowboys win, he had 118 yards and a touchdown. I just don't see the quarterback being the spot that needs to be fixed the most. I think right now, if they had a running game going, where if they could do that, they would take more pressure off of the quarterback situation, and they could run the ball effectively, things would be going much more smooth for these Denver Broncos. I think they would have won some of these games. I think they could have won the game against the Giants. They could have scored some points, won the game against the Chargers. Chiefs game, I don't think so. The Chiefs really took care of that one. The Eagles game, that's defense. Patriots game, where's this defense that the Broncos are supposedly supposed to, really run out there and say, hey, this is our defense, solid defense. We don't let running backs through. We're the no-fly zone here in the secondary. Where's that been? In the special teams, a complete mess. Those are issues. Those are huge issues. Quarterback right now, you have 3 quarterbacks on your roster right now that I can think of that are viable. Trevor Siemian, he's a viable quarterback. Brock Osweiler, he's showing he can do some things with Denver. Looks a lot better in Denver than he ever did in Houston. Looks a lot more comfortable in Denver than he ever did in Houston. And Paxton Lynch, again, I'll say it again, we don't know what we could get from Paxton Lynch. We don't know. We haven't seen a sample size. I just think if you can get the running game moving and rocking and rolling, and C.J. Anderson can be fully healthy, and Jamal Charles can get some carries in there as well, which he's been getting a little bit, but they're just not doing anything with him, and the defense improves and the special teams improves, the Denver Broncos will be back. But I just don't think quarterback is something that I wouldn't go high and sell tons to get Sam Darnold. I just don't think that that's the number one problem here.
See, and to me, Sam Darnold is the only, and I'm not saying, don't get everything twisted. I'm not saying you got to get a quarterback no matter who it is. There is one quarterback, one, that I trade up for, and that's Sam Darnold. If he stays at USC, almost at SEC, if he stays at USC, I'm not concerned with trading up because I just don't like the only quarterback in this draft that I think is that one to where he's the future day one.
Can I ask you a question, though? I really like Sam Darnold. Why do you think he's the future? Why do you think it would be him and only him? What if Baker Mayfield's out there? Is he then the future too? Why Sam Darnold? And then why?
Because I like everything he brings to the table.
But then you're also saying this too. You're saying that quarterback is the biggest issue, but it's only going to be an issue, and we should only address it if Sam Darnold's available. Otherwise, just keep the guys we've got. That's what you're saying.
Well, what did I ask at the beginning? Are they going to grab a first rounder? Baker Mayfield to me, I feel like at this point, good second rounder. I think he's going to fall. I think that not as many quarterbacks as we thought are going to go in the first round. I think that the two for sure that people are going to think about are Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. They're going to be up there. Baker Mayfield, and this is the thing that I heard it today on ESPN, on college, I think it was College Game Day or one of the college shows. They compared him to one player, and I heard it, and I was like, no, that's not who you want to be compared to. And somebody said, he's got a little bit of Johnny Manziel in him, and I went, fuck, no, that's not. I get Johnny Manziel and I get their different situations. Like Johnny Manziel let addiction take over his life, and that's why he's not in the NFL. But if I am Baker Mayfield, and I know Baker Mayfield's not thinking about this, I don't want to be compared to him at all. Just keep him away from me. I don't want to be compared to that. And that's why I heard that and I went, no, you don't want that. And I feel like Baker Mayfield is good. But with Baker Mayfield, the one question I have, how's it going to translate over?
That's always the question.
That's what
we never know.
With Josh Rosen, I like his skills. I like what he brings to the table. However, it's like Neuheisel said today on the Dan Patrick Show, the thing I look at with Josh Rosen is, he said, you look where he comes from. Kind of like reminded me of Johnny Manziel when he was describing it, where it's like, comes from a well-off family, never had to worry about money. He goes, I kind of get the vibe from Josh Rosen to where it's like, does he want to be one of the greats? Like, is it going to bug him if he's not one of the greats? And like, if I'm looking at a quarterback and I think that, go on, I don't want you. I look at Sam Darnold, liked by all his teammates, can make all the throws that I want in the NFL. Would I win if I started him day one? Probably would win a couple games, but I wouldn't go to the Super Bowl or anything. But could I sit him behind Brock Osweiler? That's why if we're talking just the first round, Darnold's the only one I'm thinking about. If I can't get Darnold, or me and the Niners are talking and I can't get the deal done, then I move on. And the reason why then is I'm glad you brought up the run game. That's number two. Let's say I can't get a deal done with the Niners. I'm not going Darnold. You're sitting there at number 5. I would get a running back. Go and get one. Look at the Cowboys got theirs. The Jaguars got theirs. Ezekiel Elliott is a man possessed out there. We just talked about the Cowboys surviving without him. Leonard Fournette is doing amazingly overall with the Jacksonville Jaguars. That would be the second one. Because the thing with the defense that you mentioned is I'm not putting blame on the defense. I put blame on how often they're out there. The win against the Chargers, Broncos owned the time of possession. You look at the Cowboy win, Broncos owned the time of possession. You look at the Raider win, Denver owned the time of possession. The Patriot win, just barely by like 20 seconds. However, you give Tom Brady that, like Tom Brady doesn't need a ton of time to burn you, so that might be an exception. But if it's even or less, you're not going to win that. When the Giants beat you, nearly even in time of possession. When the Chargers beat you, yet again, very close to being even. You won it by like a minute. You look at the Chiefs, very close. You only won it by a minute. You look at the Eagles, you only won it by 30 seconds. So if you want the formula for this team, win the time of possession on offense, put points up on the board. If your defense is rested, because if you win the time of possession, your defense is resting on the bench. If you throw out that well-rested defense, you'll be fine. But if you don't win that time of possession and that defense is constantly being thrown out there tired, you're not going to win. And that's why I would go Darnold, number one. But if I can't work out a deal, the price ain't there. I agree with you. I would go running back and get Nick Chubb comes to my mind, but I don't know if Nick Chubb is that top 5 draft pick worthy this point in the year. So early with the running backs that we have so far.
Yeah, I just think that the running game, again, like I mentioned already, and I won't harp on it again, but I just think that the running game is going to be so much more important, and I think it's so much more important right now for this team, more so than the quarterback position. I don't think Trevor Siemian, I don't want to say he's hurt the team because of the amount of interceptions he was throwing at the rate that he was throwing them. But I don't want to say that he's the lone reason. I really want to put it on a running game that's been very lackluster in the last couple of weeks. But I also kind of want to put it on this defense that has forgotten the type of defense that the Denver Broncos play. You look early on in the season, the first 4 games. Of those first 4 games, they had Ezekiel Elliott. They held him way under where he usually is. I mean, they held him to, less than 10 yards, I think? The leading rusher in that game for the Cowboys was Dak Prescott with 3 carries for 24 yards. In the Raiders game, Marshawn Lynch, and that was a win with the Raiders. Marshawn Lynch, 9 carries, 12 yards for the Raiders. And in that first game with the Chargers, Melvin Gordon, I think, had 18 carries for 54 yards. But then you look at that Giants game, Orleans Darkwa goes nuts. That's just not the Denver defense that we were seeing, in those first 4 games. But then you go against the Giants, and poof. Ever since that happened, then you go into this now 5-game losing streak, and just a huge skid from 3-1 to 3-6. That to me is not a quarterback problem; it's a defense problem.
Here's another thing.
I know, sorry to cut you off, but the reason why I wanted to do it was because you did say that they've been on the field for too long, and they can be worn down. I mean, they could certainly be worn down.
Well, when it happens game after game after game, too.
But when you look at these last 3, I'm telling you, it's just 29-19, 51-23, 41-16. They're giving up points like it's Christmas. And it's close to it. But they are giving up so many points. Denver defenses, they don't do that.
You know what it could also come down to? Could it come down to coaching a little bit? I'm not saying that Vance Joseph is fire his ass or anything, but first-year head coach, this is honestly his first year being a head coach after being a coordinator. Could it be a little bit of coaching too? Coming out, having a good team, feeling a hot streak, 3 wins, and then this losing streak. I want to ask you this question, though. Let's ditch the quarterback conversation just for a hot second to end with this. 2-part question. First off, which running back would you rather have if you're the Denver Broncos? Saquon Barkley or Nick Chubb?
I want Saquon Barkley. He's one of those guys who in college, college, things can be completely different in the NFL. But Saquon Barkley, he's a guy who can just do it all. You could put him at receiver. He's a good receiving back. He could be the punt returner. He could be the kick returner. He can do everything out there on the field. I would take Saquon Barkley.
Second question. Glad you said Saquon because it leads right into my second question. Right now with the top 5 like it is right now, Browns, Niners, Giants, Colts, and Broncos. The Browns could use a running back. However, I know you like Crowell. I'm not a huge fan of Crowell. I'd rather have Saquon Barkley if I'm the Browns, but I don't see them taking a running back. Don't see the Niners taking a running back because they've got Carlos Hyde. However, sitting there at number 3, let's say you're the Broncos, you're sitting there thinking, fuck, well, who are they going to take? Are the Giants going to take Darnold? Or are they going to go with Saquon? Let's say you're really heart-bent on Saquon and you think that the Giants are going to go Saquon and keep Eli Manning. Would you trade up to 2 to try to solidify a running back and not a quarterback?
It would certainly depend on how much I would have to give up. It would certainly depend on how much I have to give up. Because I'm not fully...
I know I'm sparking it on you, but what would be a good price if you're moving up from 5 to 2 and you have to give up the 5 to get the 2? What else would you include just for that number 2? I know I'm sparking you on this. I'm catching you unprepared with this one.
You do that all the time. I shouldn't be surprised. It's a really tough question because I guess I'm trying to look at what did the Bears give up when they moved up to I'm
pulling it up now
because I think they gave up a 2, a second rounder, or did they give up a first rounder, second rounder? I thought it was. I don't know. Please pull that up. I'm pulling it up because I want to see what
they gave up the third. Now this was the third for the second, but they gave up the third overall pick, a third and a fourth, and then a third next year. So a third, a fourth, and a future third just to move up from 1 to 3. Now, I looked at that deal, though, and I thought Ryan Pace got screwed. So I'm just putting that into it. I think Ryan Pace gave up too much in that one.
I wouldn't be giving up two draft picks then. Oh, my goodness. And that was to go from 3 to 2. Mm-hmm. This would go from 5 to 3.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying... I think Ryan Pace screwed when they made this trade.
He gave up a lot.
I said he screwed up this deal. Like John Lynch, brand new GM, fleeced him. That's what I said after the deal was made.
He gave up. He did that to me. Is giving up a whole lot. I don't know, Ricky. I don't think I can give you.
Brandon's like, I don't give up that much.
I'll be honest with you. Well, but I'm trying to think then too. So the New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. They trade away Jimmy Garoppolo.
They get a second.
They get a second rounder. That's from the 49ers, so that's going to be a nice pick. I don't know. Maybe it is a second rounder. Maybe it's a second rounder next year.
So the fifth overall and a second next year?
I'm not doing no. Here, let me give you my second next year, my third this year. Do you want my seventh this year too? How about a third next year too? No, that's way too much. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, but sometimes guys will ask for a lot to see if they can get it. They'll go high and then they'll start to come down a little bit, but maybe a second. But honestly, I can't think of.
Like I said, I sprung it on you.
Fuck you, you asshole.
I sprung it on you.
But I would really need to sit down and think about that. And you have to think about the player that you'd be trying to go for. How important do you think that would be? Because then it's all perception. Then do you perceive that player as being if it's a quarterback, your franchise quarterback that you see? Do you see Saquon Barkley being the next
big thing? Ezekiel,
I would say Adrian Peterson, down the line, that you see him turning into that type of guy.
Like the early success we're seeing right now from like Zeke and Fournette.
Sure. I think that it depends on all that kind of stuff. So I can't sit here and say, oh, this is absolutely what I would do. But if you said a second rounder, I don't think that would necessarily next year. I don't think that would necessarily be giving up a ton. But it again all comes down to the player, how you perceive him, and what you think that other team's going for.
Well, and this is where I want to turn on to you guys. Let us know what you guys think down below. Number 1, should the Broncos grab a quarterback in the first round? And then 2, if not quarterback, who should they go ahead and grab? What kind of a position would you like to see? Let us know down below what you guys think in the comment section.